No Donovan Ezeiruaku, no worries.
You are Locked On Boston College, your daily podcast on the Boston College Eagles. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello, everyone, and welcome. This is Locked On Boston College, your team every day. I'm your host, AJ Black of Eagle Insider. I want to welcome all of you to our podcast. We are a daily Boston College podcast. We do this 5 days a week. And today's episode is brought to you by Monarch Money. Take control of your finances with Monarch Money. Use code Locked On College at monarchmoney.com for 50% off your first year. Now, we have another day of practice here at Boston College, and we're going to get into two big topics. One's going to be a multi-segment topic I think you're going to get into. We're going to also talk about a true freshman that is balling out already in 2 weeks of practice. I'll tell you who that is and why I think he could have a big role in 2025. But we're going to talk about pass rush because, right now there's two big things going on in the world of football. There's the talk about spring practice. Obviously, with a week in, we've had Mike Sidley there. I've been there. It's been big. We're getting excited for the 2025 season. That's the first one. The second is we're preparing for the NFL draft. Now, both of these are kind of gives you synergy into what I'm going to talk about today, because we've already talked about Donovan Ezeiruaku, who had 16 and a half sacks last year, really invigorated Boston College's pass rush, and gave BC one of the more disruptive defenses in the country, especially, I think, the last month. You look at those games, I think it was the last two games of the season, there was 13 sacks against UNC and Pitt. That is crazy. But he's gone. Neto Paula is gone. Now, I'm not saying that he's a big loss. I'm just saying he left. So the big question now, and the question that everyone keeps asking, and I think this is, next to the offensive line, this is the biggest key for the 2025 season. Where is the pass rush going to come from? You lost you can't undersell what Donovan Ezeiruaku meant to this defense, because all the good things that you saw, you can trace back. If you did a linear line, you could trace. They had to do this. He grew because Donovan Ezeiruaku demanded so much attention. He grew because the offenses had to shift that way. I look at someone like Quintavious Hutchins. Great season last year. Had 4.5 sacks, an interception, at least one interception and a fumble recovery. He was more than anyone could have asked for. But is it safe to say that you're also a little concerned that without Donovan Ezeiruaku, he may regress? I think that's safe to say. That being said, we need to look at some of the players that you have. And one player that you have not even probably mentioned is going to be one that you may want to watch. So let's start with Quintavious Hutchins. Hutchins, going into last year under Jeff Hafley, was a practice squad player. He was a special teamer. He was not someone that was a player that you would consistently think of as an edge rusher that you would need on a winning football team. You could have him as a rush. You would think he'd be an edge rusher, just not one that you would expect to do much. And to his credit, he showed out. Now, I am always on this thread here. This is something that I talk about a lot. I do not just assume the guy that you had last year is going to be the same guy that you have this year, positive or negatively, because, especially positively, Bill O'Brien is building a developmental system. That means guys develop. It drives me nuts when I get messages like, just when people are like, well, this guy's gone, there's no one left on this team. Yes, that guy is gone, Donovan Ezeiruaku, and no one's going to replace Donovan Ezeiruaku. But it is naive to think that O'Brien, a coach that you guys all like, is not going to develop other players to be better than they were last year. I think that's the goal for every player, from the top player, Grayson James or Lewis Bond, all the way down to a freshman you're not expecting to play. They are supposed to develop and get better. So I look at Quintavious Hutchins, 4.5 sacks, but he made plays. There's no reason, and we've already seen him doing it this spring, that he's not going to do that again, that he's going to continue. Could he get 6 sacks, 7 sacks? That would be incredible. So I want you, as a BC fan out there, when you're thinking about how much you like Bill O'Brien as a coach, to remember that he develops these guys, that these guys are going to get better. They start at one place, they get to another. That's the point of practice. Don't just assume what you saw last year. If it's a name you haven't heard of, that they're just going to be nothing, because that's not how Bill O'Brien runs his program. So Quinn Q is one that we're looking at. I wanted to show you, throw a few other names out there as well. Jason Flint. This was a red. He's going to be, I think he's actually a sophomore, because I think he played 4 games last year. He's a name that you may watch for this year, because we saw him trickling in. Now, going with that developmental program here, what is it about developmental programs that we see is that guys start to show up at practice, start to play better, start to impress their coaches. They see the field. We saw that with Jordan McDonald. We saw that with Omar Thornton. Guys that maybe at the beginning of the year weren't there yet, but continue to work their tails off, end up on the field. Jason Flint may be one of those kind of guys. I did not expect him to play last year. He did. And that's what's surprising about a program like this, that there's guys that are going to show up that you don't expect. Now, he didn't do a whole lot last year. I think he had only, a couple tackles. He played in 3 games. So he's a redshirt freshman. He had 2 tackles all season, but it's a second year. Could he take a step? Now, I'm not sure about that. Now, there's 3 more players. These 3 are the ones that I'm looking at edge that I think are going to really impact your pass rush. One isn't even on your edge rush group. That's Bam Crouch. I think Bam Crouch, KP Price, and a combination of Anya Nwisi or Clive Wilson are all names that they're going to use. And I'll explain how Tim Lewis is going to do this in a moment. You're saying, who's Clive Wilson? Clive Wilson's been hurt for 2 years, but he's at practice, and this dude is jacked. This dude is ready to roll. And I know from when Jeff Hafley was here, Hafley really liked him. He just was hurt all the time. I'm wondering if this guy stays healthy. Could this be a name that we're not even mentioning yet that could end up being a real asset in the pass rush? I'm not there yet, but to hear, to see and hear really positive reports about him at practice is encouraging. Clive Wilson, his whole run at BC has been under the radar. I remember when he was recruited here, he had no 247 page. No one else was recruiting him. He was completely under the radar. He gets here. He's still completely under the radar. He gets hurt. No one's talking about him. Now he looks very much like an edge rusher that could play. So I like that. Now, the other guys I'm going to talk about in just a moment, because the feature that I think BC has that will fix this pass rush and make sure that it is serviceable this year is the man on top. And I'm not talking about Bill O'Brien. We're going to get into Tim Lewis and why I think he could be the guy that'll make sure this pass rush is working well. I'll explain why in just a moment. Scaling your business requires the right expertise at the right time. With Upwork, you can find specialized freelancers in marketing, development, design, and more. Experts ready to help you take your business to the next level. Upwork gives business flexibility by connecting them with top freelance talent across multiple industries, including AI, IT, web development, marketing. Whether you need extra hands for a project or a long-term partner, Upwork makes hiring simple and affordable. Posting a job is free and simple, and within a day, multiple qualified candidates will choose you. Instead of hiring full-time, Upwork finds affordable top-tier freelancers to scale for your business efficiently. Visit Upwork.com right now and post your job for free. That's Upwork, Upwork.com, Upwork.com, to connect with top talent and grow your business today. Life moves fast, especially when you have a family. One day you're watching your kids take their first step, and before you know it, they're off to college. That's why securing their future is so important. Fabric by Gerber Life makes it simple to get term life insurance that fits your family's need. With Fabric, you can apply for term life insurance online right from your couch. You can be covered in under 10 minutes. In many cases, no health exam is required. You guys know, as a parent, I want to make sure my family and my kiddos are financially protected no matter what happens. Fabric gives me that peace of mind. You can get $1 million in coverage for less than $1 a day, so protecting your loved ones doesn't have to break the bank. Join the thousands of parents who trust Fabric to help protect their families. Apply today in just minutes at meetfabric.com/lockedoncollege. That's meet, MEET, meetfabric.com/lockedoncollege. Policies issued by Western Southern Life Assurance Company. Not available in certain states. Price subject to underwriting and health questions. Locked On Boston College, AJ Black. Thank you all for listening, and all of you everydayers, you guys that have been with me. Maybe you've just started in the last couple of weeks. I want to thank each and every one of you. I've noticed more and more. I want to shout out my folks over in Ireland. Did an episode on Andy Quinn, and I know I saw a huge bump in people, and I want to shout out all those folks over in Ireland that were listening to our show. But when you're done with this episode, make sure you go back to all my other old episodes. We are not in game mode right now, so there's all sorts of good stuff with recruiting, talking about quarterbacks, the draft. Make sure you check out Locked On Boston College YouTube and wherever you get your podcast. Now, I want to get into the man that I feel is the biggest asset in terms of making sure that this pass rush is efficient this year. And that is not a player. It's not Bill O'Brien. It is Tim Lewis. Tim Lewis is the defensive coordinator. If you haven't been paying attention, he's a quieter guy. You don't see him a lot, but he's one of the smartest guys I've talked to on this staff. Like if you ask him a question at a press conference, he gives you a thoughtful, long response that makes you go, this guy gets it. And I think this is what makes me excited about where this defense is going to go this year, because you get guys, let's just say their names rhyme with Beth Blafley, who have a specific style and they stick with that style. And if it works, it works. If it doesn't, they're going to continue trying it until it works. And that's frustrating, right? Now, Beth Blafley, his style, for years sometimes it worked here and there, but a lot of times it did not. What I love from what Tim Lewis has been talking about is that, no, he understands that there's nobody on this roster that's going to be Donovan Ezeiruaku. At least they haven't found one yet. So it's his job as the defensive coordinator to find a pass rush. And as he said it, it's not just going to come from one guy. It's going to come from a lot of different guys. And this is where I think he's going to be key, because I think Tim Lewis is going to be, you guys like exotic blitzes, right? Well, you're going to be getting some exotic blitzes. That's why I mentioned KP Price and Davion Crouch. Crouch isn't practicing right now. He's out, as Bill O'Brien said. He had surgery in the offseason. I believe we don't know if he'll be back yet. I can't even speculate because we don't even know what the injury is, right? But that being said, I like what he said, because what Tim Lewis said, because I think you're gonna have to be think outside the box to get this pass rush working. Until you find that guy, that's the guy again. You're either your Ezeiruaku, or even a Ray Wyatt, not Ray Wyatt. What the heck is his name? Wyatt Ray. Couldn't think of his name. I had it all backwards. Or Zach Allen, like a guy that can just get at it. You're gonna have to, flood aside or surprise an offense, and you have the tools to do that. Davion Crouch is quick. He's a quick linebacker, and he's physical, and I believe in the right scheme could be a pass rushing, linebacker, get a couple sacks every year. KP Price, watch him. We've seen him fly off the line of scrimmage on blitzes on numerous occasions, and it's helped. There's been times, and even last year, where they would just send him and he'd get home on the quarterback. Do that. The times that you do it, and you can't obviously blitz constantly, or offenses are going to tear you apart, but keep them off guard. Make them confused, and simulate pressure at times that'll get your front four home more often. I still believe there's enough talent in the front four to get a decent pass rush. Will you have somebody that's going to make you a top 25 pass rush in the country? I don't believe so. But you should not have, what was it, 2023, where you were one of the worst in the country. I just don't see that happening under Tim Lewis. He is a guy that is flexible, that is going to look around. I mean, he's already revamped his defense is already revamped coaching wise. So you have more um, voices in the room. And as he said, he listens to them. You got a guy like Jordan Thomas, right? Who's your defensive line coach who worked with Myles Garrett in the Cleveland Browns. As Tim Lewis said, he's excited to learn from him and like to get more for how to build his defense. So I think Tim is going to find what works. He's going to find something that clicks with his defense. Something, whether it's a player, a scheme, an idea, and that is how he's going to push forward this pass rush. He's not going to rely. You're not going to just rely on your two edge rushers and say, that's where our pass rush is coming from. Because if you do that, you're setting yourself up to fail. You're going to do a variety of things, whether it's the blitzing, whether it's schemes, whether it's overloading, whatever you're doing, moving guys around, simulating pressure, all of that is going to make your pass rush more effective. And now, if you're reading practice reports, this is already happening. You're hearing, and this is the good sign, right? Or early in practice, defense is usually the defense is a little bit ahead of schedule of the offense because they're more instinctual. They just go. But they're also teaching them skills and scheme too. So they're not 100% yet. But you're hearing about, there was a strip sack of Grayson James, a sack. I saw Favorite Bait, the transfer from Merrimack sack, Dylan Lonergan at one point. Like, this stuff is going to happen. And so that's good. Like, you just, the hope that when you're hearing these practice reports, whether it's an Eagle Insider or you're hearing it from me on this podcast, moving forward, now that they have the pads on, you want to hear about the defense making plays too. You don't want to just be hearing about great passes and all that, great runs, because you want it to be more even, because when it's one side, that means there's the other side struggling. And right now, especially since practice pads popped on Saturday, the defense has been showing up. Tim Lewis, he's so funny because when he was hired here at Boston College, I remember my reaction. My initial reaction to Tim Lewis was, "Who is this guy?" Like, you talked all about the Bill O'Brien coaching tree and all the people that he knew, and you would expect like a big name, and you get this guy that was the USFL and hadn't been in college in like 15 years. But you get him here and you see that this is a coach with a wealth of knowledge who knows how to coach and gets his players playing at a very high level. And so I have faith that this year he's going to bring that talent out of the players that he has in front of him, whether it's a transfer, a guy who was here last year, or even a freshman. Maybe it's a Sterling Sanders up front, who's a 4-star defensive tackle that we haven't really talked about. Maybe he's starting off a little slow because he's learning the college system, but maybe by summer he's starting to get it. The coaches coach him up. Jordan Thomas gets to him, gets him going, knows, gives him the technique that he needs to be successful at this level. And all of a sudden you have an interior pass rusher as well. All of these things could happen. I'm just saying right now, they've addressed it by giving you guys to work with. I'm excited to see what Tim Lewis can do with it. In our final segment, let's switch it up. I want to talk about one true freshman that I have seen and talked and heard a lot about at camp, and it's a name that I think you guys should learn a little bit more about. We'll talk about who that is in just a moment. Ever check your bank account and wonder, where did all my money go? Between dining out, online shopping, and entertainment, it's easy to lose track. That's where Monarch Money comes in, your personal CFO, giving you full visibility and control over your finances. Monarch Money isn't just a budgeting app, it's a complete financial command center. You can track all your accounts, investments, and spending in one place. So you stop just managing your money and start building wealth. When I started using Monarch, I realized just how much I was spending on food delivery and eating out. Now I budget smarter and I save more. Instead of juggling multiple apps, I can use Monarch to check my finances, track spending, and even plan long-term goals. So take control of your finances with Monarch Money. Use code LOCKEDONCollege at monarchmoney.com for 50% off your first year. That's monarchmoney.com's code LOCKEDONCollege for half off your first year. Locked On Boston College, AJ Black here. We just had a little bit of a technical issue here, and we'll be right with you.
The NCAA tournament is here, and so is the Bracket Breakdown.
Locked On Podcast Network and Amazon Fire TV channels are teaming up to deliver NCAA tournament coverage like never before. Watch studio shows featuring former players and Locked On's local experts as they guide you through every upset, buzzer beater, and bracket matchup.
Stream it all for free on Amazon Fire TV channel. Search Bracket Breakdown to see it all for free.
It's your team every day.
I'm telling you, folks, this is AJ Black. If you have not checked out the Locked On College Basketball and some of the channels that are going on with the college basketball right now, you need to check it out. Now, I wish we had a Locked On call. Was it Alabama A&M last night that won on that buzzer beater? Crazy already. Game number 1, and we already had insanity in March Madness. So check out all the other Locked On podcasts after you're done with today's show. Now, we unfortunately with BC, we don't get to talk about March Madness here very often, but let's talk about football because football is exciting. And the spring practice has brought out one name that I really feel like should be on your radar right away. Now, there's been a few freshmen that I've watched, whether it's Shaker Rising, who's definitely starting to open some eyes with some of his play, or someone even on the defensive side of the ball, TJ Green and Ashton Cunningham, Najita Sankala, they've all looked okay. Not okay. They look like they're developing right. Okay, is not the right word here. Don't get mad at me, please. But the name that I've noticed during camp is Nedrick Bolden. Nedrick Bolden is a wide receiver from Florida, the nephew of NFL great Anquan Bolden, who is an early enroll. Not Anquan Bolden as an early enrollee. Nedrick Bolden is an early enrollee, and he's with the offense right now. And they've been using him all over the place, whether it's in special teams or on offense, and he's making plays, folks. This guy is something. Like they've got 2 wide receivers right now, Dawson Pogue and Nedrick Bolden. And both of them have looked really good. And Bolden has impressed me a lot. He's gone above and beyond, I would say, because what I've loved about him is his speed. This guy has got good hands and he's a playmaker, both, intermediate, deeper stuff. Will he play this year is going to be a big question. Like, will they use him? I think so. You want to get more depth at your wide receiver position. You saw last year, you had a lot of Lewis Bond and Reed Harris, right? When he was, you saw Jonathan Montague when he was put in near the end of the season. You saw Dino Totlin, he's gone, right? And you had the 2 transfers who Jaden McGowan didn't do much of anything. And Jerron Bradley kind of fell off a cliff. I don't know. I honestly don't know what happened there. Don't ask me what happened. You need guys to step up. So when you get guys like Pogue and Bolden, I could see both of them having a role this year, especially because they're early enrollees. But I wanted to mention Bolden because when you start to see you're either there or you have your writers there and they're reporting back like this guy's made a big play, this guy's made a big play. Bolden's name is coming up a lot. So you might have a special player here. And hey, at Boston College, a wide receiver that comes from Florida, we've had some luck there, I think. There's one guy on the Ravens that seemed to be doing okay when he was here. So I'm not going to call Bolden Zay Flowers because that's nuts. But I think they have something here. I think this is a wide receiver that we'll be talking about this fall. And I think he's going to have a big career at Boston College. So wanted to wrap things up with a little talk about Ned Bolden. Every time I hear his name, I think of 2 things. I'm going to make a just stupid joke at the end. Obviously, Ned Flanders, because I'm a huge Simpsons nerd, so obviously his name always comes in my mind. And Ned Brierson from Groundhog Day. Whenever I get a report that's like Ned Bolden made a play, I go, Ned? Ned Brierson. If you haven't watched Groundhog's Day, you don't get my joke, but those two names continually come through my mind every time I hear his name. So I had to bring that up. On tomorrow's show, I want to get into recruiting. There's been a lot going on, and I'm going to have updates that you're not going to want to miss. So thank you all for making Locked On Boston College your first listen every day. Follow me on Twitter at AJBlack247. Come over to Eagle Insider. Starting on Thursday, 50% off an annual subscription. We're having a March Madness sale. Perfect time to sign up so you get your practice reports, visitors. I've talked to almost every recruit. We're talking all about that and maybe even more news, about basketball, transfers, all sorts of good stuff. We'll have it all on Eagle Insider. And of course, here at Locked On Boston College. My name's AJ Black. Thank you all. We'll see you again tomorrow for another episode of Locked On Boston College, your team every day.